been an electric 2022 Season 3 for the drivers in the iRacing IndyCar Open Championship. Today, though, drivers focus towards the home stretch where the IndyCars head to America's home for racing. They land in North Carolina, they land in Charlotte Motor Speedway. Hello everyone, welcome back to RaceSpotTV. Welcome back on another Monday evening. We've got plenty of IndyCar action coming your way. My name is Arjuna Kankapati, joined as always alongside by Andrew Kinsella. Live timing and scoring powered by our friends over at Timing 71 is available by going to RaceSpot.wtf/Indy. And Andrew, I think this is a race it's fair to say that some have looked towards with trepidation. Under the night lights at a 1.5 mile oval, we know what we're in for. It's going to be very pack-esque.
From the home of IndyCar into the heart of NASCAR country, we are at an entirely different track from last weekend in the Indy GP. Charlotte, as you say, it's been one that the competitors have been looking on with a little bit of trepidation. It's not necessarily a track that is designed for IndyCars, but they have raced here before in the real world under the IRL banner, and now we are coming back here for this round 8 of Season 3 2022. And this is a big race for all of the drivers because this is the last race before the drop weeks start getting factored into the championship standing. So we will know come the end of this race really where everyone stands vis-a-vis their championship hopes.
And talking of these championship hopes, we take a look at the championship standings. 7 weeks down, 8 in about 90 minutes time. And like Andrew said, out of the 12 championship weeks, only 8 points weeks will count to your championship. So there are 4 drop weeks for your drivers, whether it be for real world commitments, issues on track, technical, or temperamental in nature. As it stands, Brandon Traynor looked comfortably in front with a more than 200-point lead over David Porcelli. In effect, a full race victory away. Connor Harrington has jumped in front of Christian Steele, while the rest of the top 10 stays the same. There is a little bit of shuffling. The reality is that from next week, things will look rather more interesting. Qualifying is coming to a close. Drivers get 5 minutes, the track to themselves, and just 2 attempts at going as quick as they can. As it stands right now, it's going to be the king of qualifying, it seems, over the past couple of months here in the iRacing IndyCar Open Championship. Brandon Traynor that will lead us to the green. Rodrigo Franzoni alongside for the time being. Blocker, Kraus, row 4. We were talking about the strength of field before we got underway here. Andrew, more than 5,000 iRating across of our drivers at strength of field.
Very strong field today here, Arjuna. Lots of big names coming out here, and it's great to see a number of names that we haven't necessarily seen so far this year. A lot, Blocker being one, but Jesper Orman, another one we haven't seen too much of so far this year. And then some new names as well. Pablo Francis, for instance, Hamilton Akabuzi. Not names that you've normally seen here on a Monday night, but great to see them out here today and making this field that much stronger for it.
Races like this invites the surprise element to come and throw their hand into the ring. Here's a look at your starting grid where Brandon Traynor continues the dominant run in qualifying that he's enjoyed. A 23.991 is good enough for pole, but less than 200ths back. Rodrigo Franzoni for the Bread King Racing number 21 will be on his outside. Jason Brophy, a rare Monday on the week of a Coke night where he'll join us. Tomorrow, of course, will be crew chiefing for Matt Busa in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series All-Star Race. Alongside him, Adam Blocker. Phil Kraus, Jacob Oster, 5th and 6th positions with Blocker and Kraus split by just 1,000th of a second. Under half a tenth splitting the front 3 rows. Van der Sant Orman, former teammate, 7th and 8th positions with Connor Harrington and the man in the hat, Robert Malechka, through the top 10. Marco Brazil, always good in qualifying usually, but struggles more in the pack. What can he do from 11th along with Christopher Demerit in the number 1 machine? Pablo Diaz-Francis, Rashad Craig, 13th and 14th with Hamilton Akabuzi and David Porcelli, 15th and 16th. Porcelli second in points, lots of work to do from 16th. Marquez and Steele, the Steely Rocket Machine looking to go from 18th. Lichtenberg, Holliber, Sudik, the final cars with lap times on the board. Murphy McQuarrie will round out the field of 23 cars that's about to get ready for 133 laps of action here at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. As they get ready to launch, what's going through the mind of their drivers in races like this when the moments of desperation are so frequent, the moments where you're seconds away from disaster are equally frequent as well?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of trepidation going through their minds, just knowing that there's going to be a lot, as you say, of desperation, particularly early on in this event when everyone is still really packed up. I think there's going to be some pretty aggressive driving here today, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And just to show you just how competitive this field is here today, Arjuna, that's the top 13 within a tenth of a second in qualifying. So really, really tight field throughout this field here today.
Plenty of valuable championship points on the board as well. When we talk about that strength of the field, it distributes the points even higher as well. It determines the weighting, basically. So this is a race with significance for someone like Connor Harrington. Missed a couple of rounds of the championship, but still, we heard from him last week thinking about fighting forward. Franzoni wants to have some fun as well. Expectations for the first half of this race, Andrew. How do drivers navigate it? How do they stay out of the danger zone?
And normally I say that you want to sort of hold back here, but I think you do want to be aggressive and get towards the front of the field here as quickly as you can, because I think there's going to be a lot of fighting in the mid-pack, and if you can get yourself in front of it, that's going to go a long way to getting yourself safe throughout the course of this race.
It's a pretty big field of 23 Dallara IR18 stacked up behind your king of the bricks, ready to rumble at America's home of racing. 133 laps go up on the board. After today, 4 races left, all American open wheel staples of the modern era. This a throwback, this one where drivers go into this expecting a Dallara dash. Brandon Traynor will get us underway at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. We're green flag racing, a great start from Traynor, a terrible start from Franzoni. Immediately 3 wide on the run into turn 1, Blocker backs out, but Jason Brophy slides down the inside. Great jump from Traynor, Franzoni freight train to 4th.
And that was an aggressive move there from Blocker, but we got a slow car on the inside of the back straightaway. That's Alexander Vandesant had an issue coming through turn 2 there. He's lost a number of positions, but it's Blocker now challenging Brophy for that second place.
Nicholas Studik has also dropped off the back of the pack, at least for the time being. Blocker up to second, slides in front of Jason Brophy. David Porcelli through the grass. Now, does he have a front wing? He does. We'll see if he can get back up to speed, but second in the points, David Porcelli finds himself with even more work to do. To the end of lap 2, Traynor leads a couple of car lengths clear from Blocker. Leader seems to be able to control. The pack starting to build the momentum.
It absolutely is, and Blocker is not letting Brandon Traynor get away here. He's starting to hound the back of that number 3 machine, and it looks like Blocker really has a fast car here. He wants to lead this race, and he's going to into turn 3.
Power move from Adam Blocker, just forcing his way to the inside. Brandon Traynor not fighting too hard, so Blocker will lead across the line. They're still side by side. Allow the likes of Brophy to close on up. Blocker still doesn't get it done. Traynor still hanging tough around the outside.
Yeah, Traynor not letting Blocker off too easy here. They're going to go side by side, and this is one of the things that can happen at a track like this when you have 2 really equal cars. The high line does sort of come in, particularly as the run starts to go on. The shine comes off these brand new tires here, and it just allows the car on the outside to keep their momentum up, and that's what Traynor's doing. But I think pretty soon here, Blocker's going to come up right in front of him.
You can see the split in the field. Porcelli is about 10 seconds back as Traynor will go down low once more. Foreman up into 5th. Sliding in front of Phil Kraus. The Swede has managed to in 3 positions already. Still side by side behind as well. Foreman down low. Which line do you want to be running under these night lights with cooler track conditions than the last time these drivers came here?
I don't know that there's really going to be too much of a preferred line at this point in the run. I think as the run goes on, you want to stay on the high side, but right now you can see that the bottom line still is definitely an option here for all of these drivers. So it'll be interesting to see how that unfolds over the course of the stint. But right now, I would say really you want to be single file and working sort of both sides of the track, if I'm honest.
Did see an almost 3 wide moment there, back with Harrington, Oster, and Demeritus. Oster maybe trying to help his teammate out. Harrington will slide up the track. There goes the green and gold. There goes the blue and yellow as well, trying to rip away 2 spots from the number 16. The i5G machines able to work together and fight their way through. Malechka has made no ground since the start. He fights side by side with Pablo Diaz-Francis on the edge of the top 10.
And this is one of the things that can happen is when you get behind a pack like Malechka is, there's really nowhere for him to go here. So he's more focused on defense at this point than offense. But just a little bit further back, it's Marco Brazil and Alexander Van de Sant going side by side. And they've been going at each other ever since Van de Sant fell back on that opening lap.
24 degrees of banking here. Plenty of opportunities for multiple lines to be built up. And of course, home to the Coke 600, I've always wondered what it must feel like physically for a driver to try and do the double. First, 500 miles at... Ooh, it's
Franzoni!
Yeah, Franzoni ducks down low. Now will avoid squirting back up the track into the path of oncoming traffic. But from starting in second, he spins and brings the caution out.
And that's Hollabaugh got collected in that as well.
You would assume that for Franzoni, car steps loose on him. Tremendous load being borne through the tires through the course of these corners, but that was a big one. We didn't see all of it. Let's try and pick up the pieces. So off of 4, yeah, you see the rear steps around, maybe a bit too much weight jacker. Looks like he's got it locked down until, whoa, there's a bump. And we'll see the aftermath there. Matt Hollabaugh, I think, down low, loses that as well.
Yeah, it's the unfortunate reality of the fact that we have a Roval here now. And there's just a transition coming out of that grassy area, and unfortunately Franzoni had it and then he lost it, and then Hollabaugh just looked like he got turned on the inside there through no fault of his own, trying to avoid the spinning car of Franzoni.
I tell you what, since we have this opportunity, let's go ahead and look through the rest of the incidents that we didn't have a chance to. Porcelli loses it late as they come through the quad oval, or however it's called. The car steps around on him very, very late. That's an interesting one.
Yeah, and I think that was probably just a little bit of a wake jacker issue there for Porcelli. But yeah, very, very strange there. It's almost like, yeah, the back of the car just stepped right out on him when he was going straight. So he was probably slightly loose coming off the corner and just never actually caught it. But that's an issue here, and I think you're going to see something similar with Van de Sant. Oh, Van de Sant hits the apron there, and he did a very good job not letting that be bigger than it was, but it cost him a ton of speed and a ton of positions there. But I was about to say, one of the dangers here at Charlotte is these corners, the banking is higher than the straightaway, so what happens is when you come out of the corners, the rear of the car gets really loose. And that I think is what we're going to see from a number of drivers. You can see that transition from this camera angle, actually, that you're actually going downhill out of both turns 2 and turn 4, and it just makes the car really, really loose on exit.
Did see a couple of issues on lap 1 of this race. Of course, Van de Sant touching the apron. Sudik lost it before they even got into turn 1, so keep your eye out on that one. Single file restarts as now will make things rather interesting. Split call, though, on where the drivers wanted to peel off to pit road. Blocker, Traino, Brophy. The top 3 elect to stay out. It's Kraus, Malechka, Brazil, Steele, Lichtenberg. The top 5 that duck down onto pit road. We only had about, 9 laps under green. I think it's the right call if you're up front to stay out on track. I think for those further back, probably the right call to try and see if they can do something different on strategy.
Yeah, there weren't very many surprises there. Probably the only one that slightly surprised me by staying out there was Van de Sant down in 9th or 10th position there. Malechka was one of the first drivers who actually came in there along with Phil Kraus, but Van de Sant staying out, and he only gained maybe 3 positions there, so not a lot of gain, but a little bit of risk on those old tires. But we're going to see very quickly here whether there is a distinct advantage, old versus new here. I
do wonder if for Van de Sant, the call was maybe just seeing that you can work your way forward. We've seen that from the likes of Orman. Even Demerit had a pretty good amount of momentum forward, but at the same time, it is risky, and maybe Van de Sant just trying to place himself a little bit further up in queue as compared to what it would have been if he had come to pit road. So the lights are off. Blocker, Traino, Brophy, Orman, Demerit, the top 5. Blocker in the team game is by himself. Traino does have one teammate to work with. Brophy and Orman also lone guns in the mix. How would you work with your teammate here, Andrew, to try and take advantage?
I think the big thing is just coordinating the draft a little bit. It allows you to feed dirty air to the right people, but I don't think that it's going to be too big of an advantage here, at least at this stage of the race.
See how it plays out, though, as the sun continues to set under the night lights at America's home of racing. Blocker has worked his way forward 3 spots. Get us back under green as the first caution comes to a close. Rodrigo Franzoni and Matt Holber retire in the garage. They're already side by side at the line. Jacob Oster, Connor Harrington squabbling amongst themselves with Oster in the green and gold tucked down low. Have to be careful not to jump too early. Harrington now hung out to dry. Diaz Frances down the inside.
A little bit more chaos here, but also a little bit more strung out. You can see that looked like Connor Harrington running the very, very high line through 3 and 4. It'll be interesting to see if that comes in a little bit more in this race. But he, with authority, comes down over in front of Francis there. But right now, at least, this is the danger of these single file restarts, is it's a little bit strung out, and now it's going to accordion back up for a number of these drivers, so it's going to create a little bit of chaos here.
Can see that Harrington is almost turning himself off of the wall, running all the way up high and then diamonding back down low. Interesting line. We'll be very curious how it plays out over the course of the race, if he migrates at all. Traino still committed up high. Not going to get past just yet. Kraus working on Van der Sant backwards. We saw that at the very top of the shot for what is 9th position. Gonna work together. It's starting to splinter up, albeit slightly, almost full second between 8th and 9th positions.
Yeah, and that was Van der Sant. Just didn't have a very good restart there at all, and it backed up everyone on the new tires behind him. And right now, Phil Kraus just got around Van der Sant for that 10th position. But up here at the front, it's Blocker versus Trainer, resuming pleasantries right where they left off. Blocker on the low side, Trainer on the high side.
It's a lot closer than you'd expect these cars to race in, like in real life. When we came back here, I think how Texas has raced in recent memory, although I will concede part of that is related to the shenanigans being played with the track surface. Doesn't really seem like either line is running where they want to be. Demerit, as per the norm, has migrated up to the high line where he wants to be. Oster has to defend as Harrington looks down low. These cars are starting to build back up and try and catching the group in front of them, but Oster almost runs himself up into the wall.
Yeah, and this place, but we haven't talked about this, but this place is very narrow, Arjun. It's one of the narrowest ovals that we go to, at least on the 1.5 mile variety. It's really only 3 lanes wide at the best of times, 4 in this tri-oval D-shaped area, but the rest of the course, it's 3 lanes wide, and you can find yourself in big trouble in a big hurry here. You have to be very, very aware of what your car is doing at all times in order to stay out of the wall, particularly as the tires go off.
Fight for the lead is starting to really just close up, not so much in terms of the side-by-side, but Demerit squirting around the outside. He worked past Brophy, drops the private label Team Hype Yellow Machine to 5th. Still, Demerit campaigning up high, powers around the outside of Orman. The blue and yellow's got some momentum, but Connor Harrington goes around. Caution flies for the 2nd time today. Have Connor Harrington's championship hopes gone up in smoke?
That is a massive hit to Connor Harrington's championship standings, and it looked like that might have also involved the number 18 of Jacob Oster as well. It looks like Harrington just started to drift up on the exit, and Oster was there, but I think it all comes down to Connor Harrington here. You can see Oster with a mega run. Connor Harrington doesn't see it, comes up the track and right into the path of Oster, and by the time Oster realized Harrington was coming up, he had so much momentum that he just couldn't stop.
That's right, on board with Oster. Let's go one better. Let's jump onto the front
Harrington
wing.
Bobbled. That's what happened.
Yeah.
Harrington bobbled on hitting the apron, came up into the path of Oster, and with that bobble, it cost him so much momentum, and then Oster nowhere to go.
It's not the first time we've seen that, not the last time. The question will be, does it impact other cars? And a fake out from the i5G contingent. Blocker will lead Orman and Brophy to pit road. Traino, Demerit, Diaz Francis gambling and staying out as we work caution number 2, lap 22 of 133.
And this is very interesting because a number of the drivers that came down that first time are coming down now. So I'm wondering, Arjuna, if we're just on the edge of a fuel window here. So this might produce some interesting strategies because, yeah, for some of the drivers that came down that first time to come down again, I would have stayed out if I wasn't sure that I could potentially make it from here.
And the question then I have is why Traino Demerit, why have they stayed out while Steele and Lichtenberg has also come down onto pit road? So it's not as though the i5G drivers at the front are unaware of what is going on, but yeah, it is a little bit confusing. Marco Brazil, Rashad Craig pitted under the previous caution, do not pit now. They slide up to 4th and 5th respectively. The pink of Diaz Francis, of course, staying out with Traino and Demerit from here to the end of the race. So fresh tires will be restarting in 6th, Blocker with Ormond, Brophy and Kraus behind. Who does this benefit the most, though? If you are Traino and Demerit, you maybe expect a couple more cautions, maybe you don't think it's a fuel mileage race, and now you've got some separation from you and the cars that were really starting to pick up the pace.
Yeah, this is interesting, and as we see, Rashad Craig is actually going to come down pit lane this time by, so he's going to give up some track position in order to come down, which is an interesting call from the number 20 Indy Alliance Racing driver. Surprising that he didn't come down the first time if he came down this time, but that does tell me that we're right on the edge of a potential fuel window here. So if I'm going with who this benefits, I think it benefits Adam Blocker and Jesper Orman, the first of the drivers that came down this time by. I think that if they can stretch this stint out enough, they could potentially cut out a stop. I'm not certain on the fuel numbers here, but I think that that's really the play for them at this point.
Looks like Jacob Oster will be retiring from the race. Connor Harrington has been able to at least take on some repairs and roll back onto track. 24 seconds stationary in pit road last time by. Has managed to stay on the lead lap, but Oster joins Franzoni and Holliber as out of this race. I saw Matt Holliber jumping into our YouTube chat, just discussing that little bump. All thanks to the Roval. We saw the demo laps that Joseph Newgarden ran at the very first Roval race, or new Roval race, I should say, here at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. I've always wondered what an IndyCar race would be like here at that new Roval configuration. You very much need the slower chicane that we use nowadays than the flat-out one that was rather dangerous in the original configuration, Andrew.
Yes, you do. To be honest, I think that this would be a really cool place to do like demo laps on, but I just don't know that there's enough straightaway to really get passing going, and a good enough braking zone to really get passing going in an IndyCar. So that would be my trepidation with IndyCar coming here. But you never know. They have raced on tracks that would probably be worse than this in the past. So I'm gonna say that like if the NASCAR boys can run the Indy road course, then we should be able to run their oval.
Although I think it's fair to say a lot of people want NASCAR to go back to running the oval, including many of the drivers. It was rather a chaotic weekend in the doubleheader at Indy that we had. IndyCar on Saturday put on a great race. Xfinity was a bit of a race that happened. We'll leave it at that. And then the Cup race on Sunday, I thought it couldn't get more chaotic than what we had on Saturday with the IndyCars, and maybe a bit more shambolic in some ways. Lights are off on the pace car, so 4 cars out front did not come down to pit road this time by. 3 of them, yet to pit at all, as 25 laps will be in the books here at round 8 of this 2022 Season 3 iRacing IndyCar Open Series race under the night lights at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. The pace car will pull off left, and once again the field in control of the pole position man, Brandon Traino. Has not led every lap so far. It'll take a while to get up to speed as well. Underway we are. Rather slow start, Andrew. We'll give the opportunity for some to try and build some speed and with the
Yeah, a little bit of a slow roll that time from Brandon Traino, and it's just spacing the drivers out nicely, and there's really no distinct packs forming except for at the very back of the field. We've got David Porcelli, Connor Harrington back in the running, as you mentioned. He's looking to make up some positions here rather quickly. That's Aaron McQuarrie as well at the back of the field, Rashad Craig, and and Nick Sudik as well. So this is a battle that Harrington doesn't want to be a part of, but we'll have to see how his car goes. Meanwhile, at the front, Demerit and Treno, they're just going 1 and 2 nicely as he can as the two teammates are trying to hold off Diaz Francis right behind him.
Harrington, a bat out of hell, gone from 20th already to 16th on the restart, so a nice early jump from him. Brazil playing the blocking role as Blocker, Orman, Brophy unable to work past. Blocker will have a look down low on the run down to turn 3. Can Brazil hold on around the outside? It's going to take some doing. Brazil's tyres not as worn as the 3 out front. Continues to fight side by side into 1.
Yes, and the one thing that Brazil has is because he's only got 5 laps or so on the tires, there's not a distinct tire advantage, but what he does have the advantage on is higher temperature, particularly in the first 2 or 3 laps of this run. It does take maybe 2 to 3 laps for the tires of Adam Blocker and all these drivers who pitted to really get up to temperature, so this is what's allowing Marco Brazil to really work that high line. But you see first Blocker and now Orman starting to get underneath of Brazil, and I think that the tire temperatures are starting to equalize, and they should be able to work their way past the Brazilian.
And now in the dirty air of Blocker, will Brazil struggle more? We know how much he likes to strip off the downforce and to try and wrangle out as much speed of the machine as he can. Orman, former teammates with Brazil, will get on through. Brophy will be the next in line to throw his hat into the ring. Look at the leaders up front. 3 raking away, courtesy of the block from Marco Brazil. Treno leads from Demerit, Francis. Blocker runs in 4th, now 1 second back, with the impetus to work his way forward. At the line this time, Brandon Treno does 24.430. Blocker 24.347. It's only a 1/10 of a second, but it will add up. 10 laps time at this trend, Blocker's in the leading pack.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's going to get easier and easier the closer the Blocker gets. He'll be able to sniff that draft more and more. The aero push really only starts to affect you once you get into that 5 or 6/10 range of the car in front, so he's going to be able to draft up rather nicely over the next few laps here. Meanwhile, Van de Sant and Kraus, they've been going at each other for the majority of this race ever since Kraus pitted on that first caution, and that is showing no signs of stopping here, but they've got to negotiate themselves around Marco Brazil as well.
Of course, with the short green flag runs, we haven't seen traffic just yet. That might be a factor at some point. Kraus down low on Marco Brazil. We jump on board with our cameraman in the form of Alexander Van de Sant. Brazil almost knocks down the wall on the exit of 2, squeezes Kraus on the entry into 3. Kraus is having none of it, keeps the foot planted to the floor. The outside line gives the momentum to Marco Brazil, who pedals Kraus into line. Still battling for 7th as they aren't dropping off the back of Jason Brophy, at least just yet.
Well, Brazil's doing a good job just being able to keep up his momentum on that high line, but that camera shot really illustrated just how narrow this track is, because on many tracks, if you make sort of that error that Brazil did and get close to Kraus, he wouldn't have been anywhere near as close, but because it's so narrow, particularly on corner exit here, any small mistake can really affect the races of the drivers around you.
It is not being the chaos fest that some anticipated, maybe to some degree aided by the level of competition that have stepped forward here today, as still Brazil and Kraus duking it out side by side. 2 cautions of the 37 laps completed so far, under 100 to go. Kraus finally able to get it done on Marco Brazil behind. Looks as though Brendan Lichtenberg did the move as well on Hamilton Akabuze. It's not as though passing is impossible, but compared to how we started this race off, where basically everyone was looking for moves, fighting side by side, it's very much settled into a single line groove, much like the Coke 600.
Yeah, that's actually a very good comparison to make here, and this is sort of what we expected, I think, a little bit from Charlotte. You have that sort of chaos early on, those 2 early cautions, but now I think you're going to see the drivers, as Brazil gets high and into the wall there through turns 4, and he's still riding that wall.
Almost
not ideal there for Brazil. He's probably got some damage.
Yeah, that will be significant. Was a wall magnet for a moment there. Malechka doesn't want to waste any time, will get through. Now Steele, Lichtenberg, the I5G duo will be the next up, as the question will be for Brazil, does he bring it to pit road? Again, just runs the rims up into the wall. Doesn't seem to have slowed him down that much as he holds on strong behind the Power Slide duo in front.
And the problem for Brazil right now is Malechka's really running that high line, which is where Brazil runs. And you can see the big downside of that, of running that high line, is you just simply have nowhere to go if you make a small mistake or a small misjudgment of the arrow.
Jesper Orman jumps in front of Blocker, so of those cars that boxed on the second caution of the day, it's now Orman that leads them. They've not closed on the trio at the front, but it is now Jesper Orman, the man leading the charge to fight against the breakaway trio at the front, and of those, 41 laps into the race. Andrew, we can't be too far away from seeing these guys dive onto pit road.
Yeah, absolutely. The top three have got to be thinking of coming down pit road rather soon here. And the fact that they've stretched it this far does tell me that the other drivers that did come down on that last caution, they're probably thinking about making it on just one more stop from here as well.
Now Van der Sade crash! Oh! Brazil, Lichtenberg up in the wall as well. Huge crash!
That was Porcelli.
A little bit of an Arca Brakes moment there. Although, with the cars going up the track and maybe sliding back down, very difficult to anticipate which direction to go. Unfortunately, the VRS satellite racing machine went the wrong way. Huge crash. We saw the initial moment and then not really how it was developing before. So, I think we are going to have to go ahead and take a look at this. Again, we just see the aftermath of it. Looks like they got stacked up. Brazil went to duck down low. Healthy dose of air between them. We do question the wisdom of a move like that and the aggressiveness of the cutback.
Yeah, that was it was an aggressive move there from Marco, and he wasn't clear of Lichtenberg, and it looked like it all started with Van der Sande making a mistake coming out of turn 2 there. And I just think Brazil probably didn't realize just how much a head of steam that Brendan Lichtenberg had, because, I mean, going into the corner there, he was in 2 cars in front, and then this was what happened with Van der Sande. He got the apron, did a really good job to save that and not make it a bigger issue, but then when Brazil cut down, it was just the fact that Lichtenberg was already there. And then this incident here with Porcelli, this reminds me of a certain incident with Jacques Villeneuve in 1994 at Phoenix, where he arrived on scene way late to the party, and I believe that was also Rashad Craig that got a piece of that action as well.
Right on board, and we'll do it at full speed, so you get the sense of how little time Porcelli has to react. By the time he's recognized that the cars have slid up the track, he's in them. There's no time to make the choice here. One more local ride from the nose. It's so difficult to decide which way to go.
It really is. And like, by the time that he realized that the cars were coming there was obviously nothing he could do, but also to a certain extent, you can see just how far back he is from the cars in front. And when you see the cars checking up like that, the best thing for him to do there would have been to check up himself. And then unfortunately, it also looks like Rashad Craig got some fairly heavy damage in that as well.
Oh, that, my friends, is the Arca Brakes Weekly moment there on RaceSpotTV today. Didn't pick up which car that was, but poor Rashad Craig. Innocent victim in all of that. So we now look under caution as they slow things down again. As, I presume Brendan Lichtenberg jumps into the Team i5G YouTube account and posts in our YouTube chat that Andrew, he regrets that he only has but one virtual car to give for his team.
Yes, unfortunately, we don't have any red flags and spare cars here in iRacing. You get one shot at it, and unfortunately, that's going to be day done for Brendan Lichtenberg.
You'd probably need a few spare cars if it continues at the trend where we're not even at the halfway marker. We've already had 3 cautions so far.
Yeah, and I expect there will probably be a few more cautions as well, just with how aggressive everyone's being. But we have had some pit stops on this caution here, Arjuna. And the most interesting thing to note here is that we have a team strategy call at the front of this field. Jason Brophy, Phil Krause, and Connor Harrington Yes, that Connor Harrington that was a part of your second caution is back on track, and they are all now at the front of this field by virtue of not having taken any service on this caution here.
I am very curious how this is going to play out. Was on a decently long, I say long, but it was a decent run. It was trending quite well in terms of the amount of racing that it looked like we were going to get. You can see the order on the left side. Steele has worked his way forward after difficult qualifying, as Mark Murphy. He was quick in the practice session before we got underway. Light should go off on the pace car this time. So we'll get underway with 45 of the 133 laps done. We saw in that last restart that even though Traino slow-rolled it a little bit, wasn't really too many people, at least towards the front, taking advantage, Andrew. Now, as it's now a team trio at the front that will look to dominate, I'm not necessarily expecting too much different.
Yeah, so I think the big thing here is that the Team Talent, private label Team Hype drivers, they'll all be able to fire up their tires just that little bit quicker than the drivers behind them in Brandon Traino and Christopher Demerit. So that being the case, it's probably going to be, I would say, 10 laps before we really see the I5G drivers start to make some meaningful moves on the private label Team Hype drivers in front of them. But I think we are going to see some fireworks here because it has been a fairly long run here for Brophy, Kraus, and Harrington, particularly Jason Brophy.
Is Jason Brophy going to be able to coordinate with those behind him? We're about to find out. The pace car, again, will exit stage left. Field in control of 3. The private label Team Hype and Team Talent contingent. The field is starting to get decimated. They're dropping like flies. 23 have become 17. But back underway at Charlotte, it's a good jump from the 3 up front. Traino able to try and follow them, but behind him his teammate Demerit has been left behind. He defends from Francis.
That was just a terrible start there from Christopher Demerit. I'm not sure what happened there, but it has bottled up all of the drivers right behind him. Not just Francis, but Jesper Orban and Adam Blocker
we got
also
problem.
Right there. Oh, big wreck here.
Nicholas Sudik, but because he crashes down low, gets back to pit lane, we stay green. Good to see. Traino to the inside of Harrington, not wasting any time as he tries to make inroads towards the front. Demerit seems to have gathered the momentum back up. He's closing as well. The team call at the front doesn't seem to have worked, but Brophy and Kraus trying to work together. Traino powers to the inside.
And whoa, that was really close there from Brandon Traino. Really brave move coming through the inside, but he has taken the lead with authority. I was wrong. I thought it would take him a few laps to really fire up those tires, but he went straight through the middle there, Arjuna.
He had the speed. He was not lifting for anything. He will cut the run to the inside for Phil Kraus. What a power move that was. Demerit past Harrington as well. Important moves as now Harrington loses that again to Jesper Orman. Old tires going to throw Harrington into the thick of what is going to be some hard racing. Diaz Francis down on the apron, slides up the track, but we stay green. He hangs on.
And another nice save there from a driver hitting that apron in turn 2. That's a really treacherous thing to do, and you can't afford to do it. But I think, Arjuna, that we've shown here that we can take 10 lap older tires, but 20, 25 lap older tires, it's just not going to work. Harrington, Brophy, they're just going straight towards the back, and Kraus is hanging on to Traino at this point, but I think that's only by virtue of having that clean air. Christopher Demerit's really starting to pull up on him, but I really think that this shows that there is a fair amount of fall off in these tires.
So we get the sense of what to expect if it becomes a shootout at the end of the race. Harrington now defends from Van der Stant. There was separation, but it's closed up. Brophy sees Orman just send it around the outside with ultimate commitment. Diaz Francis will duck down low and try and follow suit as well. It's Traino and Demerit that lead 1 and 2. The gamble has not worked out. Let's listen in on the restart with Christopher Demerit and just hear what happens here. I think half of that is not reacting in time. It sounds also to me like he may have still been in the wrong fuel map.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think he might have been in the wrong fuel map there, Arjuna, because he pressed the gas and it just never started to spool up. So he was able to get into the right fuel map nice and quickly in order to avoid the drivers behind him tripping over top of him, but it did cost him a lot of time. But the beauty of the draft in this IndyCar is that you can make up a lot of time in that draft, and Demerit has done that. He is just 0.3 of a second behind his teammate for that lead of the race.
For a moment, I've wondered if Traino knocked down the wall a couple of laps ago, but his car seems to be okay. Brophy now fights with Malechka. These two are very friendly with one another, despite the fact that they race on opposing teams. Always very worried when I see the cars just jerk to the left, that they're going to jerk a little too much down low onto the apron. It's happened one too many times already today. Brophy will lose now again, as Christian Steele in the Steely Rocket machine continues to make inroads. Phil Krause has dropped behind Jesper Orman. So all three of these private label team hype cars starting to feel the effects of the dirty air.
Yeah, the 25-lap old tires just were not the ticket on that race start. Despite the fact that we do have a nice cool track here, a nice cool track temp, it just not enough grip in those old tires. So it was a strategy gamble, and it's one that didn't pay off for the private label team hype team talent cars.
It's a long way to go. Will they be able to work their way back into contention? It is a sizable gap at the front, though. It is a full second that separates Demerit and Orman, second and third steps of the podium. Demerit's hanging around with his teammate at the front, but it is a two-horse fight, at least for the time being. Brophy now slides behind Akabuze, almost out of the top 10 entirely. How quickly things will change. Harrington, only 2 cars away from running dead last of those left on the leading lap. And at one point, things were looking great for Adam Blocker, but races in IndyCar change so quickly as Krause and Diaz Francis fight in front of Blocker. Blocker's got uphill road to the end of this race.
Yes, he certainly does. He's got to find a way to get around these drivers sooner rather than later, because you can see Jesper Orman disappearing off into the distance there, and there's really starting to be a breakaway happening. But Diaz Francis, I've been really impressed with him so far in this race, Arjuna. He's been up at or near the front for basically this whole race, and he has been taking it to these series regulars with some authority here.
Usually someone that races a little bit more in the fixed competitions. Behind him, Blocker commits to the outside. Not going to get it done as easily as maybe he'd wanted, but Krause doesn't defend too hard. A couple of cautions so far today have slow rolled the first half, but it is starting to stretch out now. Cars that ducked out on our last caution almost up to lap 20 on the run. Harrington now drops behind Marquez, only Macquarie left behind him. Brophy to 11th, Krause to 6th, so we'll keep tracking their slide backwards. Might still have something up their sleeve that can bring them back into the mix. After this, of course, next time out we go to Sonoma. It's a shame that Sonoma is no longer on the real-world IndyCar schedule, but we get to enjoy its flowing nature here on iRacing, even though it is one that is really quite a technical difficulty.
It's a very difficult track, and it's one that's very fun to hot lap on. One of my favorites to hot lap on, just because you get in such a rhythm, and the corners are so technical. You have to hit them really well in order to get a good lap time around there. I will say it is not necessarily the place where passing is the most prevalent, but it should be an interesting race, particularly if drivers make mistakes, because you have a fair bit of runoff area, so you don't find many drivers falling by the wayside, but at the same time you find a lot of drivers putting on a lot of pressure to try and get back through the field. So it'll be an interesting race. Meanwhile, at the front here, Demerit has basically been glued to the back of Brandon Traino throughout the course of this stint. But that number 7 machine starting to creep up here. Jesper Orman really looking strong here.
He has looked very, very quick today. It's lost track of its type left in the 4 weeks after this. We go to Gateway and Pocono as the final 2 ovals on our agenda. One short track, one speedway. Pocono really is in a bracket of itself. Although when we get there, we're going to have the debate, is it 3 turns, is it 5 turns? I very much enjoyed the row on social media that developed when NASCAR went there just a weekend ago. Francis unable to follow with Orman. He's been slipping backwards into the clutches of Blocker, who has broken away from Kraus and company. Kraus doing a good job to at least stay in front of Van der Zandt for the time being, but 43 laps into the run, Kraus will be wondering when he can come down to pit road, when he can get some fresh tires on that car.
Yeah, so it's certainly the most painful thing that a driver can experience when you just know you fundamentally don't have the tires to fight with the drivers who are around you, and you just are helplessly falling back through the field as Kraus, Brophy, and Harrington have been doing. But the flip side of that, Arjuna, is if we do get a full cycle green flag pit stops, and that is a big if given how this race has progressed so far, but if we do, there will be a point in time where all three private label team hype drivers will feel like they have the best possible car under them when they get the new tires and everyone else is on these older tires.
Adam Crane points out quite correctly that the last time we came here, in the middle of the day, so different track conditions that I mentioned before, Jesper Orman won, so he must like the track here. He must have a pretty good feeling for what the car needs in terms of setups as well. The Rocket Man, Jacob Oster, 20 laps down, but still trying to slog away a result. Always good to see drivers stick it out there. And while he suffers in 16th quietly, his teammates run 1 and 2, but being hunted down by that number 7 car bit by bit. Our first road course race on the new configuration of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway was definitely a fun one, Andrew. And now, of course, we wait to see what touches we get when we get the full oval later on this year. It should be an exciting time, although I'm sure all of the teams, on one hand, are excited about redoing a lot of setup work. On the other hand, they're not so excited about having to redo a lot of the setup work.
Yes, although I don't expect the setups to change too drastically. Of course, the setup that will be the most affected will be the qualifying setup, just accounting for potentially new grip levels or things along those lines. But yeah, I think that everyone here in the IndyCar community is definitely ready for that new scan of the Indy Oval. But looking at the battles on track here, you can see on the bottom of your screen the view from Jesper Orman's car. He's really done a great job just hanging on to the back here of Demert. You can see the tires are starting to go off, so you're getting a little bit more separation, about half a second from Traino to Demert, another half a second back to Orman. The one driver I want to highlight is the driver back and forth here, Arjuna. Diaz Francis has really put a gap between himself and Adam Blocker. It's now almost 2 seconds back from the back of Francis to Blocker, and Francis has been slowly drifting up on the back of Orman for a while now.
It has grown to about 2 seconds. It had started at about 1.4, maybe 10, 15 laps ago. See if he can close, but he has kept, like quite rightly you say, the gap stagnant to Blocker, who has been unable to follow. Oster will come to pit road, not sure if that's day done for him. Steele has been unable to really work his way forward in the same sort of way as those in front have. He's stuck behind Philip Kraus, again trying to go down low. And your 2020 iRacing Indianapolis 500-mile race winner, very much getting stuck now. I'm sure the frustration starting to build.
It definitely has here. I think Steele, seeing what his teammates are doing at the front of the field, he can't be very happy with what's going on here, and he just can't seem to find a way around that pink number 9 machine to Phil Kraus. Kraus running that sort of high line, and I think the tires have just gone off to the point where Steele just isn't happy enough on that low line. Meanwhile, something's happened with Adam Blocker. He's fallen back into the clutches of Alexander Van der Zandt, and Van der Zandt actually around Adam Blocker now.
I think that was just fuel-related, potentially. Blocker back in line and now able to save a bit. Not slowing down by any means, but Van der Zandt had been looking a little bit feistier. Steele and Kraus, finally, Steele able to get the move done and work forward into 8th. Still building forward, of course, but running out of time. The halfway mark now well and truly in our rear view mirrors. Blocker had passed Van der Zandt again, who's had another moment, I would believe, because he's lost a bunch of ground, and now Malechka closes on his teammate. We know Van der Zandt has the speed. To some degree, though, he needs to find an extra ounce of consistency.
Yeah, absolutely. He can't afford to keep making mistakes here because it just costs you so much time. It costs you so much momentum. And ultimately, it's not just slowing him down at this point. It's also slowing his teammates down around him. because they've now fallen. Blocker's now 3 seconds back of Diaz Francis in front and a full 6.5 seconds back of the race lead.
And I'm not surprised because I just saw how close this was. Grab a look at the RaceSpotTV replay and you'll see. Again, it's the apron overcommitting. Blocker very much has to release his foot off the pedal. Otherwise, Van der Zandt was coming up into him because you could just see him tracking up all the way through the corner. He'll slot in behind Malechka, Will Van der Zandt, but I think that's probably the 4th time this race, that 12 car has been moments away from a race-ending disaster.
Yeah, and at a certain point, you just need to say, do I really need to be that low through turn 2 every time? And I think you're going to see Van der Zandt maybe run and see what that high line has to offer for the next few laps.
Maybe try and cool those tires off. Orman has lost ground. All that hard work. 24.811 last time compared to a 24.6 to Traino's previous time. Traino, again, a 24.6. Another 24.848 for Orman. All the hard work starting to slip away. A long run car maybe for Brandon Traino, Christopher Demerit, looking very strong at this point in the run.
And that also just goes to show, Arjuna, that having 2 cars in front of you instead of 1 really does make a difference from an aero perspective as well. So I think what's happened is probably a combination of car setup for the I5G boys having the long run pace, but also just Orman being behind a draft of 2 drivers, just put that little bit more work through that front right tire. And I think that he's probably struggling at this point in time and just holding on for this next pit stop here.
Steele now will challenge on Van der Zandt. Through the start-finish line they come. Malechka and Blocker swapping around as well in front of them, so there are some moves. Here come the trio. I was just wondering when pit stops were becoming a factor, becoming a thought. Harrington, Brophy will roll to pit road, of course the trio that stayed out on our previous cycle of pit stops. You'd assume Phil Krause is in the near future as well. Fresh tires will go on their car, and I would assume they think they can go to the end from here.
So this is a 50-lap stint here to the end if these drivers are going to make it. So it's going to be a little bit of a stretch, I think. But it definitely seems like it's something that is doable at the pace that they're going. So
Demerit's losing ground. Sorry.
Yeah.
Last time 2 and a bit tenths slower. I wonder what the fuel number is here. We haven't really got the clearest indication because that was our first actual green flag stops, and even that has been interrupted by cautions. I wonder if this is now a fuel game again.
I think it very well could be, Arjuna. And the interesting thing is now Brandon Traino is right behind the private label team hype driver of Jason Brophy. So this is throwing, I think, a little bit of a wrench here into the plans, because certainly you wouldn't expect to see Blocker dropping back unless you knew that, or unless he knew that he needed to make a fuel number. Certainly not behind his teammates. He very much likes to be that lead car. So I definitely think that we have the makings of a fuel mileage race here.
It's the extent to which Demerit has fallen back from Trainer that has me convinced. 1.6 now. Yeah, I'm wondering, is this the fuel game that's going to be a factor? Of course, Brophy and Harrington are going to be rockets on the short run now because of the fresh tires that they've got in their cars. They are lapping almost half a second quicker than your race leaders for the time being. I mentioned it earlier, after this, our final 2 ovals will be a trip to the egg-shaped Worldwide Technology Raceway under the shadow of the Gateway Arch, and of course then to the Tricky Triangle, one of my favorite places to watch an IndyCar oval race. It's a shame that, of course, we don't go there in the real world anymore. It's a dangerous place to go racing, although if there are rumblings about its return, it's rumblings that I think many an IndyCar fan will be very excited about.
Yeah, definitely a case where I think it's the fans are excited, but not necessarily the drivers, because you could tell from some of the interviews there that a lot of them were nervous, particularly after what happened, obviously, with that big wreck with Robert Wickens. Nervous about running at Pocono, but to be honest, Arjuna, those types of venues and those types of races, they used to be very commonplace. You'd think not only about Pocono, but the likes of Michigan International Speedway, where the speeds would be 240 plus miles an hour down the straightaways in cars without halos, without aero screens, without any sort of safety measures in place. It's amazing what IndyCar has been and what the drivers have done over the course of history.
It feels surreal to watch legacy footage now without any of those safety innovations that we take for granted now. It does really make you think. Van der Zandt will get past Blocker, will slide in line as Steele will tuck in behind as well. Sorry to cut you off, Andrew.
I was just going to say, I was watching a 1994 Michigan race the other day, and half of the drivers didn't even have headrests back then, let alone Hans devices.
DS Francis has had a moment. Still gathering that car up. Will be just in front of the gap, the pack rather, that we were watching just a moment ago. It's not a great time to be struggling, to put yourself at a disadvantage heading into a run of pit stop strategy where execution is important. DS Francis becomes the first to pit of those that came down in our last caution of the race.
Yeah, and I do think that this is well within the window of being able to make it here at this point. So I think that fuel might be sort of out the window for these drivers at least. It's 41 laps to go, and we've definitely seen more than a 41 lap stint from some of these drivers so far. So I think that we're well within that window for some of these drivers to come down. It's just a matter of trying to stretch it as long as they can to have as short a run as possible for this final stint.
Blocker continues to fall backwards as Steele, trying to power around the outside, will get it done on Van der Zandt. Again assisted. I don't think these are too many moves being fought. Let's see what happened here to Pablo Diaz Francis. Oh my days. That's a good save. You can see the rear end still not stable as he enters into one. Change of underwear required. Jesper Orman has dived to pit road as well.
Not only a change of underwear, but an immediate change of tires because those rear tires just got superheated. Looks like Orman's down pit road. So is Van der Zandt. Van der Zandt there had been starting to struggle. We saw that as well. But this is very interesting. I think you're going to see both Treno and Demerit responding fairly quickly here. Particularly Demerit will want to keep Orman behind him and limit any potential undercut that might happen.
There goes Treno. And lap traffic's a factor. We haven't really talked about it, but we've been seeing the effects of it. Demerit follows his teammate in, and you're right, they had to respond. It wasn't a question of if. It was a question of, do we want to win this race or not? Malechka, Steele, Blocker will stay out a little bit longer, have stretched it past the 50-lap marker on the run as well. So for them, I think there are too many considerations about fuel. So where is Jesper Orman going to fare in comparison mainly to Christopher Demerit? Treno's up and away. There's the onboarded Orman, already built up to speed, and across the line he'll come. Demerit on the access road should be in front, but is he going to have his tires where they need to be?
Yeah, it's going to take a little bit more time to... Blocker really, on those older tires, gets really out of shape coming out of turn 2, and that really checks up Jesper Orman. So any hope he had of really being on the back of Demerit, I think Blocker's put paid to that with that move there.
And Blocker immediately down to pit road to bring the pun games that some of the race but are known for. Blocker very much throwing the block there to Jesper Orman, who was a lap down at the time. Blocker not obliged by any means to get out of the way. Van der Zandt and Brophy both have made their final pit stop. Van der Zandt jumps in front. Of course, Brophy 15 laps into the run. It's going to hurt at the end of this stint when his tires have got a long way further than everyone else around him.
Absolutely, and Blocker works his way back onto the track, but interestingly enough for Blocker, he's well behind both of his two teammates now, so that's going to be a costly set of stops for Blocker. He's going to come out at least 5 seconds behind Van der Zandt. We're going to have to see what happens here with Malechka.
Steele also down to pit road. That will complete the cycle of pit stops at the front of the field. Malechka searches for his box. Left he goes, nice and tidily, executing as his pit crew works up on the jacks for Firestone tires. A tank of fuel going in. Will be 33 to go next time at the line. Malechka was never going to be in a contention to fight for the lead. The question is going to be, Where will he emerge? Orman is closed within half a second of demerit for second, so that battle for the podium spot is not completely done and dusted. Malechka off the access road, moving behind one of his teammates, behind Kraus as well.
Yeah, I expect Malechka, once he gets his car up to speed, he'll be around Phil Kraus just as quickly as his teammate was. But I think, yeah, the big loser through that entire sequence there, though, definitely Adam Blocker. He's almost 5 seconds behind his teammates at this point. Meanwhile, Orman putting the pressure on Christopher demerit for second place.
33 to go. When building setups, Andrew, this is a rather unconventional place. What background data points can you use? Which other tracks can you compare to as you get set for this race, which is the first of the week? You know very little about what your competition is bringing to the table.
Yeah, I think that you're looking at tracks like Chicagoland, Kansas, and to a certain extent Atlanta, but Atlanta will have that little bit of a different aero configuration compared with Charlotte here. So yeah, it's really tough to find a comparable to Charlotte, and the main culprit again is the transitions out of turn 2 and out of turn 4, because you really have to be so much more aware of your rear tire when you're making a setup for this place than you do at virtually any other 1.5 mile oval.
It's taken a full lap, but Jesper Orman is into second. Past demerit he goes, 2.5 back from your race leader with 30 laps to go. Is it too big a task for the Swede to close to the front? There isn't a large difference in tires. Orman pitted 2 laps before the i5G duo that now sandwich him. Does Jesper Orman have enough for the Indy Alliance Racing number 7 to climb his way to the front, Andrew?
He just might, but I think it's going to be a tall order. I think he's going to have to rely on some lap traffic to maybe slow down Brandon Traino. But don't count out Christopher demerit just yet. We've seen that i5G has had a car that has worked really well on those long runs. And we do have a fairly long run ahead of us, at least as it's currently situated. So don't count out demerit just because he's lost the position for now. He's certainly not letting Orman get away here.
Longer than 2 of the runs that led to cautions is the run from the pit stop cycle to the end of the race. So by no means is a guarantee that we finish under green. No way is it a guarantee that we don't potentially get interrupted at some point as well. Malechka Van der Sant will swap around as they fight for 5th. Got to work together. DS Francis a second up the road in front. That will be the next target in line. While Orman and demerit battled, they didn't lose too much time to your leader up front. And as they continue to fight, the question is, can they fight like this without losing ground to Brandon Traino? The gap 2.7 and starting to build demerit back to second.
Yeah, what was I saying? Demerit knows how to play the long game, and he definitely was not letting Orman escape. And now, with authority, demerit back into that second position. I don't think that either of these drivers at this point have anything for Brandon Traino without the help of a caution getting the pack all packed back up again.
And with a points result like this, strength of field over 5,000, going to be some good points on the line. After breaking the points record in 2022 Season 2, are we staring down another record-breaking season for Brandon Traino when we get to the end of the road in just a couple weeks' time?
It certainly looks that way, Arjuna. Brandon Traino already has very close to that record point total, and he's going to get much closer here today as well. So I would predict that within the next 4 races, Brandon Traino is going to be able to put on even more authority onto that record points haul here. He's certainly looking up to the task, and crucially for him, the 2 drivers chasing him in the stands, David Porcelli and Connor Harrington, having really bad days here today.
Yeah, especially for David Porcelli, second in points, and with more to fall back on than Connor Harrington, who's missed weeks. So when you factor in drop weeks, it impacts negatively on Connor Harrington's chances. Blocker of Kraus, it's a battle we're familiar with. They're duking it out over 7th spot. When it comes to that championship, I also wonder, as we look forward the rest of this season, Watkins Glen likely to be a pretty good strength of field. Pocono, One Wonders, will really depend on what we're up against, who's going to show up for that one. And then our road course races, of course, we go to Sonoma. That's not likely to be one where we break any sort of records for participation or strength of field. Gateway will be an interesting one because that's a technical place to go racing, but there's still plenty up for grabs in the championship. Malechka to the back of Diaz Francis and challenging around the outside. The power slide car looking good.
Yeah, Malechka thought he had the move done on the previous lap, but Francis made the move back on Malechka, but Malechka very much on the freshest tires here in this part of the grid, and he's putting them to good use around the outside of Diaz Francis. He's looking to secure that 4th position, and I think another couple of laps, and he's going to do it with a brave crossover move to the inside there.
Yeah, didn't want to wait. Puts the right front right next to the left rear on the entry into turn 3. Pressures Diaz Francis, and with tires that are going almost 10 laps younger than what the number 5 Pink Machine has. Down low, you'd be hard-pressed to wrestle that spot away from Malechka, who will grab 4th. 6 seconds back from Orman. It's going to be about consolidating this place as they continue to fight. Yes, Malechka got the spot. Francis not saying it's done just yet.
And very similar to what we saw with Demerit and Orman, Francis has shown that he has the car not just for the short run but the long run as well. So he might be hoping that as the run goes on, his tires will equalize with Malechka and he's able to get back around. Meanwhile, Orman, speaking of this battle, they have still not let each other off.
Jason Brophy.
Brophy.
It's an issue not on pit lane, and because he's down low again, will stay under green. But Jason Brophy retires from the race, becomes another one in the graveyard of cars that now totals almost 10 full Dallara IR18s. Dramatic moments there. Brophy will be frustrated.
Yeah, not the way that Brophy was hoping for this day to end, but he had been having a frustrating race with the strategy playing out as it did. Clearly, the private label team, Hype Team Talent drivers were hoping for a caution that just never came, and it's put them behind the 8 ball, and it finally bit Jason Brophy there. But meanwhile, it looks like Malechka has finally stamped his authority on that 4th position, at least for now, with Diaz Francis falling now a couple of tenths behind the power side driver.
Question now, can Van de Sant close? 1.6 from number 5? We'll see. Orman now very much stuck behind Demerit. While the duo battled, Brandon Traino cackled with glee and grew the gap to 4.2. Exactly what your points leader would have wanted as he looks to dominate his way to the end of this race. Murphy slides up wide, and I think he clips the wall, and it's going to be the bump again, isn't it? Yeah, sliding back and forth, and just an amalgamation of despair for Jason Brophy there. Not the way that you want any race to go.
No, certainly not. Oh, we've got a big incident. Aaron McQuarrie in the wall here.
Do we stay green, or are we going to set up a photo finish to the race? McQuarrie sliding down the track should bring it down below the white line. We should stay green. McQuarrie trying to nurse his car to pit lane as the leader works his way to 3.
And I believe that was off the nose of Adam Blocker there, so we'll have to see if Blocker has some damage as well. But that was a big moment in the middle of turns 1 and 2 for Aaron McQuarrie. Another unfortunate end to the day here.
He is going to be able to nurse that car back, so an impressive job there. Blocker's car doesn't look too bad, although at these speeds, hard to get a good look, more than a fleeting glance, but Steele will throw it to the inside, and the way that Blocker lackadaisically just leaves the door open would suggest there is potentially some damage. Still second is where the battle seems to be raging on 13 laps ago. Let's see what happened then to McQuarrie. Into 1, Blocker behind. Maybe just a bit more speed, committed to the high line. McQuarrie gets turned, not much he could do.
Yeah, I think that was just a little bit of miscommunication. McQuarrie was obviously trying to let Blocker go at that point. And he wasn't really fighting with each other, but Blocker wanted that high line and McQuarrie was there. And just, I think Blocker just miscalculated the closing speed and into the back of McQuarrie, and McQuarrie definitely got the worst of that one.
It'll be 10 laps ago, next time at the line. Drivers came in expecting a Dallara dash, something worthy of Arca Breaks Weekly. We've seen a couple of moments of chaos. Overall, it's been a strategy race, staying out front, controlling track position, even in these cooler track conditions. It wasn't the total pack race that maybe I was anticipating. There's a look at the conditions. 25 degrees in the air, only 27 down on the track as we work towards 10 p.m. in the month of August at the virtual Charlotte Motor Speedway. A decent amount of wind as well, Andrew. I wonder what that's been doing to the cars. Maybe explains a couple of the moments we've seen so far.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't make things any easier, particularly when you have wind that is pushing you through one corner and making you loose through another corner. It can be very difficult for the drivers to negotiate. But here we have a battle that is Hamilton Akabuzi and Phil Krause. Phil Krause with the aggressive move to the inside there.
They just about almost wrecked there. Francis, as he just had a technical issue, drops down the timing screen. Is it temporary? Will whatever issue he's got resolve itself with just 8 laps to go? How cruel that would be if what had been a good performance so far. Akabuzi holds off Krause for now as the old tires really start to pay the piper. But Diaz Francis has not resumed his spot in the timing tower. What a painful way for the day to come to an end.
That is just such a shame for that number 5 car. He had done such a good job running in that 5th position. Was really doing a good job on his sort of Monday night debut here. Just a real shame there, and I do think that he's gone for good.
Saw his connection to the server plummet. He got dropped on his way down. Unfortunately, Pablo Diaz-Francis not going to be scored at the end of this race. They're still side by side as we just have 6 laps to go. Phil Krause not used to battling for 8th positions. Showing some fight. Akabuzi unable to convert a 13-lap tire advantage to the position just yet. As the tires get older, you're able to defend on the high line just that little bit more.
Yeah, and that's the veteran move there from Phil Krause as he's sticking religiously to that high line, forcing Akabuzi to really put himself in less than ideal positions in order to complete this pass. But I do think Akabuzi has the faster car at this point. It's just a matter of being able to get that momentum on the low side to complete the move.
He thought about a slide job there, thought better of it before he overly committed to that one. Final cars on the lead lap, not in danger, you'd have to say, of going a lap down, but they'll get a long time to finish this battle once your leader has crossed the line. Orman has been dropped by Demerit, by the way, full 2 seconds back from the number 1 blue and yellow machine that sits in second. Good day overall, though, you'd have to say, for Jesper Orman. Akabuzi finally gets it done, but Krause is not determined to let that one go without a fight. It'll be 2 to go the line for Brandon Traino, who is again looking like he's on his way to a victory in this iRacing IndyCar Open Series. Monday nights once were the domain of Adam Blocker, but in the last 12 months, Brandon Traino has made Monday night his home. It wasn't easy here today. What a drive it was from the number 3.
Yeah, it's been another clinic here from Brandon Traino, and what would we expect any less on an oval like this one? Really was not in very much trouble at any point in this race. Blocker tried to pressure him early on, but fuel strategy just didn't work out for the power side driver, and he's found himself well back now. It's all down here to Brandon Traino on this final lap.
It was a stop and start opening part of this race as Phil Krause looks to have run out of fuel trying to nurse it to the end. Gambles from the likes of Krause made things interesting, but a long green flag run saw one familiar name rise to the top. Brandon Traino wins once more on a Monday night. He conquers all in his home race at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. A Dallara Dash Chaos Fest was expected. What we got was a strategy gamble that didn't pay off, a slog from those behind to work their way to the end of the race, but it's the black, white and red of Brandon Traino that stands on top. Once more, the king of Monday nights.
It's almost becoming automatic for Brandon Traino at this point. If it's a Monday night, he's going to be at or near the top step of the podium. So just not surprising at all to see once again just a dominating performance from Brandon Traino. But again, what a race there for Jesper Orman in that 3rd position. We don't see him on Monday nights, but the team leader for the Indy Alliance Racing driver, he really came out and showed what those Indy Alliance cars can do, and there's a new team in town trying to take the crown from the likes of i5G and Powerslide.
In his 500th official oval start, Brandon Traino has just yet another win to add to his legacy. What a day it was. Maybe not as bad a race, if I will concede, but 4 races left to go. They are bound to only get better from here. Let's grab a look at those race results. 133 laps, but one familiar name at the top. Brandon Traino wins by almost 5 seconds from his teammate in Christopher Demerit. And i5G 1 and 2, Jesper Orman will stand tall on the 3rd step of the podium for the Indy Alliance Racing program. Malechka and Van der Sant, a powerslide duo, 4th and 5th, with Steele breaking up the party for powerslide in 6th. Blocker struggled in the mid-stint, finished 7th when all things are said and done. Hamilton Akabuze, a quiet day, but 7 positions gained for him, while Phil Kraus gambled, but dropped to 9th with fuel struggles at the end, 1 lap down behind Traino. Marquez into the top 10 on his return on a Monday night, with Christian Steele, by the way, our biggest mover, our hard charger of the day, plus 12, up into that 6th position. Mark Murphy was quick in practice, but 11th at the end of the race. Connor Harrington spun, still finished in 12th, 1 lap down from the field. Then to the names that didn't make it, and there are many. Pablo Diaz-Francis, a technical issue drops him from the field. With 9 laps to go, Macquarie turned by Blocker. With 16 laps to go, Brophy, a bobble off turn 4 by himself, 18 laps down from the field. Jacob Oster did endure after his own little bit of calamity involved in someone else's incident to come across the line in 16th, with Sudik across the line 17th behind him. David Porcelli came into this race 2nd in points, but he'll emerge 18th on the track, potentially even dropping behind those chasing him down. Brendan Lichtenberg, Rashad Craig, 19th and 20th respectively. Marco Brazil, Rodrigo Franzoni, and Matt Holliber make up the 23 cars that attempted a race. Unfortunately for them, did not last very long. For Franzoni and Holliber, lasted less than 10 laps. For the first caution of the day, came out. A good race there, and to add to the accolades and the praise being heaped onto Jesper Orman, fastest lap of the race for the Indy Alliance Racing program driver. That setup definitely looked good, maybe just not playing out the race in the way that he would have wanted, the way that would have taken him back into his winning ways at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. Let's, though, go to a man that knows a lot about winning. Let's drag in Brandon Traino for a post-race chat. Brandon, I know you and the team at i5G weren't expecting much out of that race, but reflecting on it, it wasn't that bad. It was certainly a race.
That was a damn good race, and we should come back here every season if I had my say.
Oh, okay. You like the Charlotte Motor Speedway.
I like it. I like the fact that we finally got spread out, and setup kind of played a factor into it, and we had some green flag pit stops. But the pack racing at the start is kind of sketchy. A lot of close calls, and I'm sure there was a lot of wrecks from it. But yeah, when we got spread out and had the long green flag run, it played out pretty well.
Talk to me about that first run. It was a pack race. It was a little scary. When you were building the setup, did you have that in mind? Were you thinking a lot more about how it would stretch out towards the end of the race?
We kind of went for both, if I'm honest. I went for more long run handling like I normally do. I wanted the car to be consistent throughout the whole run, or at least not be massive understeer towards the end like I think a lot of people had. And I also think a lot of people had the snap loose off the corner, which we really didn't have. So that was good, but yeah, the setup was kind of a good balance. But again, I focus on long run speed because it usually pays off in the end.
It paid off today then. Brandon Traino, a winner once more. We'll slide over then to his teammate Christopher Demerit standing by. Chris, a good 2nd place finish for you. You had to charge your way up through the field. You might not have minded the pack racing that we had at the very start of the race.
Yeah, I was thinking that's how the entire race was going to be. I was glad to see that it kind of spread apart over time, and tires became a big factor. I definitely, ruined my right front during that first long green flag stint, but yeah, I was glad I was able to get to the field. I thought I was going to get stuck in the middle for a while, and the strategy, we went one way on the strategy, and the cautions fell in our favor, so that really worked out.
your teammate Traino has given his vote that he wants to come here again. If we left the choice up to you, are we coming back to Charlotte?
You know, there's worse tracks to go to, so I'll get behind it.
Okay, I don't like the sound of that, but I'm now thinking about what your type of a poor race is going to be. After this, we've got a couple more ovals. We're going to Gateway and then over to Pocono. We're going to see you around for those next 2 oval races?
Probably. Yeah, I'd give it like a 90% chance.
All right, 90% chance. I like those odds. Well, congratulations on the second. You worked your way forward. You survived the chaos and then settled into the group. Good run to second. We'll see you next time out here on a Monday night.
Thanks.
Christopher Demerit, 1 and 2 for Team i5G, but a great performance again for Jesper Orman in the Indy Alliance Racing number 7. He's standing by with Andrew Kinsella.
Jesper, that was quite the race that you had there. You couldn't quite stay with Demerit there on that final stint, but just tell us a little bit about your preparation and how you came up with a car that was able to almost take it to the i5G boys up front.
Yeah, I've been working a little bit on this setup. Charlotte is a good track for me, but to tell you guys, I'm completely done. My wrists are sore, and I've been feeling a little bit on the weather for a couple of days. I couldn't do anything to those guys. They destroyed the field today. There's nothing I could do.
Now, we haven't seen you too much on the Monday night so far. Is there any hope that we're going to see you on some of the ovals coming up here in the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, you never know. I mean, whenever the schedule works out, I'm up for it. And representing the team, it's a lot of fun. And today's strength of field was really good. So, yeah, that was an enjoyable race, although very hard.
Absolutely. Very difficult race, but a very well-deserved third place there for Jesper Orman. Thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thanks, Andrew.
Good to chat to our podium sitters. Jesper Orman. Interesting to hear the physical toil that he had today in the race. Although we mentioned how narrow it is with modern hardware, the level of force that they can put out, as well as if you have brake pedals, how much you have to use to get them effective. Maybe not a surprise that things are getting that physical. It was an interesting race, that is for sure, but next time we'll see what Sonoma, what wine country has to play out. Same time, same place, August 8th on Monday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Join us on RaceSpotTV as we head to the barren version. No rain in California when iRacing came to play at Sonoma, but it's a fun race course. It's one, of course, that we don't see in the real world anymore, Andrew. I don't know which layout off the top of my head that we're using, but there are many that we could.
Yeah, there certainly are a number of different options that the IndyCar have raced on over the years. My personal preference is definitely to have that chicane near the end of the track. It just opens up another passing zone. So hopefully that is the layout that we have. But again, this is a track that I think you can describe as really a lot of fun to lap. And if you're a driver here on iRacing, I highly encourage you to take an IndyCar around it, because it is a lot of fun to wrestle the power of an IndyCar around this tight and twisty track. But we'll have to see just how much action there is on track in 1 week's time.
It is also one of those tracks, much like VIR, that gets underappreciated because not many use it, so its numbers are low, so not many people buy it. It's a never-ending circle that just spirals downwards and downwards. Here's a look at that schedule. 4 more races, all American open wheel staples. 41 laps in wine country next time out, then under the shadow of the Gateway Arch, we'll go for 128 laps. Then to the Tricky Triangle, to the Pocono Mountains for 85 laps at the 2.5 miles there, before over to Watkins Glen for 29 laps at upstate New York. Always a fun little challenge. Next season, of course, let's finish with our final topic, Andrew, as voting has ended for our 2022 Season 4 schedule, available on the forums for everyone to be able to put their voice forward. We are, of course, going to 7 road courses and to 5 ovals. There are some intriguing results out of that schedule. We'll get that up for you in the next couple of weeks. It's always an exciting time for drivers, though, as they look forward rather than looking back.
Yeah, absolutely. The nice thing about iRacing is as one season winds down, another season is about to ramp up, and it presents new opportunities and a new chance to try and dethrone who is right now the king of the Monday nights in Brandon Trano. So I know that a whole bunch of drivers will be itching to get going on this new season when it comes up, but we still have 4 races to go in this season, and it's not done yet, and certainly the action on track won't be done until the last lap of the last race here.
And to some degree, for drivers who are not fighting for too much, yes, we're all just fighting for bragging rights in effect, but from now their focus will shift forwards. They'll look at the schedule, they'll start thinking about those, and they'll have a plan in mind for how to approach that. That is the future. For now, though, it is time to bid you farewell. More IndyCar action to come here tonight, with the Lionheart Speedway Series breaking out the DW12 and going short track racing at the New Hampshire Motor Speedway. That's going to be a fun one, and of course, this Wednesday, the Lionheart IndyCar Series gets ready for its next race as well. Plenty of action coming to your way the next couple of weeks. On behalf of the team at RaceSpotTV, though, delighted to have your company once more on a Monday evening for official iRacing IndyCar action. Joined by Andrew Kinsella, my name is Arjuna Kankipati, signing off for now. We're live from the Charlotte Motor Speedway, from America's home for racing. The king of the bricks is victorious once more in his domain of a Monday night. We'll see you next time from Wine Country. For now, so long and goodbye.